Luis, do you want to share a little bit about yourself for our newcomers?
Hi, my name is Louis Ogwin, and I'm on the D5 committee. I'm vice president with Heath over here, and we've been looking at kind of conservation in East Orange County. A little bit about me: I'm a civil engineer, professional engineer, and a former Peace Corps volunteer, graduate of the University of Florida Civil Engineering program. And I have a background in environmental and mostly water quality.
Oh, thank you. The next person on the roll call is Steve Constantine.
Hi, good evening. My name is Heath Constantine. And I thought I heard somebody ask if I'm related to Lee Constantine, so I'll just clear that. Yes, he's my cousin. I was born in Winter Park, Florida, so I'm a native Floridian. I work in the financial services industry. Currently, I'm a loan consultant for a software provider of financial services, financial software. And like Luis said, we're working on environmental conservation. That's what's very important to me. I live in Florida for the scenery and the beauty, not to visit strip centers and malls.
Thank you. Is Anna Pepper on? No. Eugene?
Eugene is here.
Yes, I'm finally here. I'm Eugene Staccato, co-chair of this advisory group, and I guess I'm an activist. I work on anything that this committee does, so mainly on the Lake Pickett attempt to buy it for a park. So that's our objective.
Okay,
It's really hard to hear. Yeah.
Eugene's a big advocate and is working with Lake Pickett to buy land and designate it as a preserve, right, Eugene?
Yeah, I've been working for decades out on the east side, trying to piece together pieces of the land. I was originally involved with the fights up on the Econ in Seminole County, where we fought the major developments, which are now developed, but we did get wins out of them. One of the big wins was the creation of the Econ State Forest and a lot of the green spaces on the east side, farther out, and continually trying to protect the east side from the sprawl and cancer that's happening. So it's some days are good, some days are bad. So okay.
To stop the development east of the Econ, and they did a lot of work to establish the Econ Forest and continues to advocate against the cancer, which is development and growth out in East Orange County. Good summary, Eugene.
Yeah, I'm hearing like a flute in the background. That's nice.
Oh, that's because I brought my flute today.
Okay. It's amazing. Certain frequencies really come through fine on the overhead of these speakers. High frequencies tend to come really good for some reason.
Okay, good. All right, who's next?
Austin Vale?
Austin Valley? I don't see Austin yet.
Joel Montilla?
I do not have Joel.
Lyra Williams?
Nope.
Gordon Spears?
No Gordon.
Bob Olson?
Hi, I'm Bob Olson. I'm retired. I have a background in economics, and I was a business consultant for about 30, 40 years. Passed my CPA exam, but never practiced as a CPA, just to have the knowledge and so forth in the business consulting area. Retired, got interested in the environment because of what I experienced in California with Sierra Club, and I could see the same thing happening here in Florida. So I said, okay, don't complain about it, do something about it. So I'm volunteering.
Joe Morales? Carolina Barrientos.
I'm Carolina. I came to Orlando in 1995. Studied English and I went to UCF. I graduated with a master's in engineering, and I currently teach at Emory Academic University. I also have a real estate business. Real estate broker for many years already. And I'm also volunteering at Animal Services. What you do in the summer when I don't have to teach.
Nice. Elizabeth Gray.
My name is Elizabeth Gray. I'm also a native Orlandoan, and my career was banking and pharmaceutical sales here in Central Florida. And I recently retired, and I just joined the Lake Pearl Advisory Council as well, and have helped out with my HOA over the years for a long time. So I wanted to help at a larger level.
Appreciate it. And for, Mike Osmer. I know he was emailing that he didn't have a login either.
Yeah, he did email and I sent him the link, but he's not showing up as an activity.
Okay. Do you have people in the lobby? Because Karen said she was like in some sort of lobby, but they were was asking for a login and password to get it.
I don't have a lobby.
The waiting room.
I have attendees and I have panelists. I don't see it.
Some question is, sometimes when I use it, if you don't click the button that you don't want to use the waiting room, it's when you set up the Zoom event invite, it's set up as default.
But I would see them in the waiting room though, right? Yeah, so I think once you start, there's no longer a waiting room.
So usually down at the bottom of your Zoom screen, there's the icon for the waiting room. Do you see that?
Anything here? No, I said, Zoom event lobby.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Everyone in the lobby can watch and it will stop when it's done.
Yeah, I don't know. Zoom has so many updates and it look different. Okay, so we have Eric Rosh. Did you have him
I
there?
don't know where.
But we do have Donna Gunther.
Donna Lynn.
Donna Gunther.
Yeah.
Donna Lynn Gunther, sorry.
Donna, do you want to say hello?
Hi, hello. I'm Donna Ginther. I've currently just been added to the abatement committee for District 5. Thank you very much. We're supposed to have a meeting tomorrow morning, but it has been canceled from what I understand. I live in the Wedgefield area. I have my master's degree from UCF. I am currently a CFO of a environmentally friendly construction services company that makes sure that the building that's being done in the state of Florida is not, that the concrete washout is not contaminating our aquifer. And we're trying to keep as many general contractors compliant as possible that use us. But again, we depend on the government to crack down on the fines and the different you know, we can't go to the lobbyists directly, but it's up to the government to crack down with the OSHA rules and everything on any of these job sites. And if that's not happening, that concrete washout's going into your aquifer and poisoning you. So just might want to keep that in mind. I live in Wedgefield, and we're having about 10 acres of trees being ripped apart at least once a week, if not once every 2 weeks. And I'm concerned about the environment here. I'm concerned about the wildlife here, and I'm concerned about where that takes us going forward. And because I know East Orange County is their next place to rip apart, obviously with the 46 600 homes in the Starwood DRI that's been purchased south of the Bright Line. I know what's coming, and I'm just trying to keep that from happening, or at least be controlled in a way that we can depend on the government to make sure that this is being cracked down for the people that are building responsibly. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Donna, for joining us.
Can you also hear us okay?
Oh, absolutely. There's music in the background. I have no idea where it's from, and it's not from me because I'm just sitting in the office working on payroll.
All right, we were trying to get rid of the music and I did something. I didn't know if that took care of it or not, but thank you.
You can mute everyone, Wes, and then slowly add the single people and then add the major.
I think it's some kind of a process on our end. You can,
But it's kind of, you know, finger clipping type music, so it's okay.
All right, so that was the last of the roll call. And then we will call the March 23rd, 2022 meeting to order. We have public comments. We have nobody that's in the public, but I don't know if there's anybody who is online that's in the public. Looks like it.
no.
Members. Close the public comment. We need the approval of the January minutes. I think we
We don't have time to formalize those, right?
I believe if Stephanie didn't email them out, I don't think we have them. We'll have them next month.
yeah, we'll just do that tonight. All right, so we'll move the approval of the minutes. So considerations of additions to the agenda. I don't know if anybody have any thoughts. Additions. We had some discussion from Karen regarding the animal shelter and getting some upgrades made to the animal shelter. Yeah. Excellent. Okay, so we will get there. All right.
I did want to add something.
Okay.
Rural boundary on the ballot.
I'm sorry, where are you at? That's just new business?
Yeah.
Okay.
So approve our agenda for this evening. So I'm not making the motion, because somebody will make the motion. All right, I make a motion that we approve tonight's agenda.
I'll second it.
So everyone in favor of approving tonight's agenda, March 23rd, 2022, please say aye. Opposed? So reports of officers and work groups. Item here for an update on the Lake Picket developments, the Lake Picket study area, which is new. So we have several updates that are ongoing. So yesterday at the BCC meeting, the Groves preliminary subdivision plan for their master infrastructure, like the loop road and some of the segue roads that go around the farm, as well as the conservation area impact for the loop road that goes through that. Are you guys familiar with the Grove, the Lake project? So, so that was approved yesterday at the BCC. A lot of community members that worked the previous weeks before to come up with some conditions related to that PSP and the CAI. So that is the first one to pass, but he's divided the land up into the different parcels. And so you will see more PSPs that will be coming forward for each individual section that is going to be done. And I'm not sure as to Commissioner, maybe you know more about the rhyme or reason of how those PSPs are going out. Like, I don't know if there's I don't know if the commercial's doing first or what's happening.
So the commercials last. That's the only thing I know of that. Like, well, I know more, but okay, let me back up to when you first started your question. So I believe they were going to bring everything together at once, but then they decided to break it up because I guess they were going to work on section by section. And I think he wanted to get the main road in first and get that going. There's 2 more coming up, but it doesn't include the commercial. So that hasn't been submitted yet. So the other 2 sections are the residential areas. And we have the bottom half and then the top half. And those 2 have been submitted at the same time, just separate PSPs. So it doesn't make any
The
sense.
2, 3, and 2, 2. Is that what it is? No, 2, 4.
So I don't think it's going by the transects. I think it's just, they just sectioned the whole thing. And you know, it could have probably been because it's such a large area and when you're doing these, maybe it made sense to then just cut it up in 2 sections. I don't know if that's why they did it. But they submitted it at the same time, which is like, why 2 sections could be together, but it could have been just because it's so big. Because it's both coming at the same time. So the residential seems to be coming at the same time. And then the road, though, they just wanted to get that started before putting in the houses, so that they have a road, I guess, to get to where they're building the houses. So that's the answer to that question. The way, just to give a little bit more of the process, though, so it's going to follow the same process as this one did. So it's going to be going to the DRC. It's been submitted to DRC. They're going to be submitting comments. And so the public can download these documents. And I would say it'd be good for the public to look at them and provide, you know, comments at the DRC meetings, or even email staff beforehand and say, hey, did you think about this? Or I would like you to consider this, or, you know, just that if we could get a lot of things set up at the DRC process, that would be preferable. Whatever doesn't get settled there, then that'll be like my office with Mr. Trent and the developer, trying them to negotiate things. And at that point, it's harder because now it's like trying to get him to agree with them so that I can then convince the board to do it. You know, because if he doesn't agree with me and it's something that we really, really do want, then it's me against him in front of the board of county commissioners.
Right. So I know Claiborne County has been very active with the DRC in terms of providing feedback to that. I also know that we get many lots of that. So we've tried that route.
And I will say that they have been not easy to work with. Like people, you can even watch the meeting and see how it's like, I didn't get this information. I don't even have one that I could read properly. Staff didn't, you know, didn't brief me on it. They didn't let me know it was ready to go. Like, you know, I was not informed by staff at all. And then when we were negotiating with the developer, he was getting the conditions. I was supposed to get the finalized conditions. I didn't get them, but he got them, and then he included me in the email. Like, why didn't we have to get these? You know, like, so.
Yes, we haven't had any luck in terms of trying to resolve anything at the DRC level at all, and it's not for lack of participation.
Well, I think after this, what happens, and I might talk to them today, I think they'll be more willing to listen, because then they're gonna have issues later on. You know, because I already expressed how they were not communicating and not working with me. So they saw how this went. And I was able to build a good relationship with the developer. He has the trust in me to work with me. He was actually being, you know, a lot of things I asked for, he was willing to give. The other things that I didn't get was because it was already in the regulated plan, or it was in conditions that were already, like we already had it in the comp plan amendment, Or there were things that we'll be adding in the next PSP. Because it wasn't related to the road, it's related to this kind of thing. So, and there was another one that we just had to work out more. That, you know, I decided let's just wait till the next PSP because we need to work this through more. So I think with the next PSP, staff should be better to work with. Yeah.
I'll try one more time.
Eugene has his hand up.
Hello, I had a question. You said you're going to have something for the, up for vote for this fall. Is that going to be a charter plan modifications that's put forward by the Board of County Commissioners? And are we going to create the language, or is the language created already for the charter and to be put into the Muni code if it actually passes? You hear that?
Eugene, can you repeat that one more time? I'm sorry.
Okay, can you hear me pretty well? Am I coming through real silent or what?
Yeah, you can speak up.
Okay,
a little bit.
can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, the question is about the charter question that the commissioner is speaking about that will be in the fall. Is it a charter question that's going to be put on the ballot, or?
We're going to discuss that later on, Eugene.
Okay, all right, never mind.
No problem.
So that's the update on the row and the PSPs that are forthcoming there. Then we've got the colonial highway project is supposed to have some new improvements that have broken ground in 2024. It doesn't look like that's going to happen, especially with the state pulled its matching funds from the FDOT. So we met with FDOT, talked to them, and it doesn't appear as though those increases will be forthcoming until 2027. Anticipated completion date of 2029-30. However, they don't, the funds have not been allocated yet. So whether or not that comes to fruition or backlogged, we don't yet know. So now we need to attend DRC meetings on the second and fourth Wednesdays at 9 a.m.
Well, the ones that have the growth on the agenda.
Yeah. Will your office, Emily, send emails to the members to let everybody know that the item is coming up?
So I did want to ask if you wanted, like, who wanted to be on, did they send out an email list? You could add yourself to their email list. I was wondering if anyone wanted to add themselves.
DRC email list? I'm on it.
You are on it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I think that I know some of I will get from.
So I'll definitely be keeping an eye on that because I'm gonna tell them as well. So if I can't attend, then Wes will put in my place. We'll try our best to. I just said we'll try to do all informed, but I don't want to promise anything because I missed something and then it's like, oh no.
Yeah. And then those meetings are not held at the building, the county administrative building. I made that mistake before, so don't go to that one. It's on the one on John Young in the Public Works Department. And it has the same process. You check in at the front desk, fill out a card, if you want to speak, the same process. And so there's also, in terms of an update on Lake Picket developments, you've got Sestiny, formerly known as Sestiny with only a Y, but now it's Sestiny with 2 E's. Has its first community meeting that's having coming at March 29th. Really important that we generate community attendance at those community meetings. The board. So the last time that Sestiny came to the community meetings and went all the way up to the ECC board, the only way that we defeated that was via community participation. That's the only way that I got that one flip vote, Commissioner Bonilla, District 6, where she said people had 6 p.m. 6 p.m. or 6:30.
For what?
Community meeting, March. Yeah, I think it's 6:30.
March 29th.
6 p.m. We have to have big community turnout, and then we also have to make sure, this trick has been pulled on us on the past, that if you don't firmly state that you're opposed to sustainable development, the staff has marked you as a neutral comment. So we have to like specifically state, you know, our name and where we reside, and that we're in opposition of this because. And I think in some instances, I would just like to say that in the past, the community was very heavily involved in the growth. And I think that sometimes we solved staff's and the developers' problems by feeding so much information because we were so well researched. So stating opposition as opposed to, and why is fine, but then not stating opposition and stating opposition, why, and then the solution, because then they, you know, it seems like there has been some of the, it bit us a little bit on that. So just to state opposition and the reason why you feel that way. With regard to SUSTME, I think that there was an update to state policy with the growth at Pickett South when it was approved. We had Governor Rick Scott, who at the time had passed legislation that said that a development could not be denied based on traffic. But I think there has been an amendment. Am I correct to that state legislation?
Just now?
No, it was done not last legislation cycle, but the one before, where now commissioners have the right to actually say the infrastructure as a total package can't handle this. Whereas before, that was something that couldn't be done. Am I right? Am I describing that?
I hope you're right. I didn't know about that. We have to look into that one. Yeah, I'll look into that one because I haven't heard that.
Okay. I got that from Thomas Hawkins, who's now at the University of Florida in the law school. So he's, and you know, he was an attorney. So anyways, he used to be at Thousand Friends of Florida. And he said, check into this. So that's what he told me. So it's at East River High School in the cafeteria next week, Tuesday at 6 o'clock. And we really just need people to come out and say, you know, absolutely not. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why this development is a bad idea, from everything that it's within. It's on the Econ River. It's not just in the basin. It's on the Econ River. The Econ River is above the threshold for the state in lead and E. coli contaminants in different locations. We have a lot of protected species that reside within the area. The habitat is there, is good for them. The road system is failing in that area, and Lake Pickett North doesn't really have, they're landlocked. They don't really have a way out because they back up to the rural boundary of Seminole, and then they've got a small sliver on Chuliota, and they've got Lake Pickett Road. So I mean, they are really, they're locked in there, you know. So so there's a lot of issues that would be coming with SUSTME. I know that they have hired the same development firm that developed app. So that's the same company that's there that they have hired. So we have more units this go around. It's at 24, a little more than 2,400. Last time it was just below 2,000. Which also brings up some state legislative questions, because I thought that if you had a development that was on the border like that and it exceeded 2,000, there needed to be a regional study. It would just be decided by one county.
I think they took that away with Scott again. That's what I think he got rid of as well. Developments of regional impact, BRIs.
Yeah.
Considered.
Would it be surprising? But anyway, so that's forthcoming next week.
So-
And then the second meeting is to be announced in July.
Oh, so a couple more dates for that. So the first community meeting for this transmittal is March 29. The transmittal for LPA is April 21st. And then transmittal hearing for the DCC is May 10th.
So April 21st, so that's your
It's
local,
not on
your
here.
local planning
You have to write
agency.
that.
The LPA and then the PNZ, you said?
The LPA/PNZ
Okay,
is April 21st. The BCC is May 10th.
May 10th, okay. So we will be attending those. The one thing that I found kind of, it was different than last time is they're taking 18 acres out of the rural settlement. That was not in the last proposal to remove that, from the Sesame before, and that sets a really negative precedent for all of the other rural settlements that are across Orange County.
That is not allowable. And I was a bit confused because I actually had a meeting with staff today. And so when I read the community meeting notice, though, it seems like it's staying rural settlement. It's not going to be added to the study area. But then when staff was talking to me about it today, it seemed like they were talking about it being added. So that is not allowable. Once you're rural settlement, you can't ever take it out, nothing to be added in either. That's the county's policies.
What happens in that? I mean, then this should.
Well, they can't do that. I mean, so, if that's what they're trying to move forward already, it's not compatible with the comprehensive land use plan or policy. If they try to do that.
So in their application, would the county have caught that already in the application process?
See, that's the thing, what I'm seeing in the notice is one thing, which they could do, they could develop the rural settlement, but as a rural settlement section, but they can't add it to the Lake Pivot study area. So they could have two things going on at the same time, that they're pushing the applications through. Or, but it has to stay in rural settlement.
So, and then in addition to that, so the problem we always talk about compatibility and consistency of surrounding developments. So the compatibility and consistency of, if you take the 18 acres from a rural settlement, what are you compatible to? You would have to carry the rural settlement form of development throughout. It doesn't work the opposite way, where you say, oh, we've got the most intense dense up here, and therefore we make that compatible with moving back. I know that the developers would like to look at it that way, but that wouldn't be compatible.
Another thing to remember is the Lake Pivot study area was made in a way that you have trend effects, where the highest density is on 50 and less as you go up. So it doesn't start all over again at Lake Pivot. So they have to continue where the grow left off,
Which has happened a lot.
which is Wes, do you remember T1 or T2?
T2 at the top.
Yeah, so then they have to continue with T2.
Which is really important, and why in that PSP with T2 that we hold those at half quarter acres. Because the grow is
Well,
trying
it's
to
average.
reduce. We gotta find a way.
So,
Quick question, did the music go away now?
no,
No?
No, it's low.
no. I logged on to my other computer. I got it to work so you can see my ugly face.
I feel like when you guys start talking and the pant on the over there in Bithlow, that's when it kind of comes on. When we speak, we don't really hear it. So I think it even says Bithlow radio station. So
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm catching about half of what you guys are saying, to be honest.
It's bleeding through something. I don't know. You guys can't hear anything in that room, but there
No.
must be some bleed over on some cable that the internet's on in that place.
Yeah, I'm trying to kind of capture all the information, but I'm maybe like a third of it just because the music's kind of so bad.
Yeah, I thought it was the HDMI cable, the projector, so I unplugged it, but apparently that's not it. Everything else does not have a microphone except for these right here, and you definitely can't hear it. Okay.
Evidently, they have a community radio station somewhere in that building, and someone did not isolate it well enough electrically. A question about the Sustainia. When we go to speak next week, you say say a sound no, but should we mention that and try, instead of that, why don't we pop the park idea to them?
So instead of just going and saying no at the Susquehanna meeting next week, pitch the park idea to them.
Yeah,
Good idea.
I mean, because right now we're kind of hosed because the Grow is going to have all the infrastructure to support Sustainia. These guys are sitting in Denny's making all the plans. So together,
They think, okay. So yeah, it seems like it's a done deal, and Denny's making deals, but Eugene, I assure you, they're probably at a place much classier than Denny's.
I agree. Yeah,
I think
know.
they're somewhere over off of Big Sand Lake making deals.
But I mean, this would be considered a DRI, but they split it in half, and so
This would be considered DRI, but they split it in half.
yeah, they split it in half on purpose.
Yeah, they split it in half on purpose. Right, no argument there.
So I mean,
So I will tell you that the county does not have any gopher tortoise relocation areas in the county. But that the green place funding is something that could be used to acquire conservation land that is suitable for gopher tortoise habitat, and that currently has that habitat, which will help with gopher tortoise relocation that are needed for future development.
we had a few ideas when we looked at that property. We did that walk a few months ago. Grow tortoise is one of them. Mitigation, redevelopment, mitigation of the actual land, sort of like what we did with Holland Ranch when we bought that property. In fact, this could be a mitigation for the grow, since they're going to be destroying uplands and wetlands.
So he's talking about that they have done mitigation projects in the past, and that lot could be the mitigation for the grow, since you're destroying habitat in the grow. Who spoke yesterday about gopher tortoises relocating and it not being affected? Nicole, okay. Because that was part of what resonated with me, was that even if you relocate them, they want to go back to home, and they get killed trying to go back to wherever they came from.
It's very, I mean, it has been successfully done, but by the right people. So it's very difficult to do. So it's important that whoever's doing the relocation are skilled at it and know what they're doing. Because if it's done wrong, they could actually die, because they have this GPS mechanism in them that once you pick them up and move them, they lose it, and then they get confused, and then they could die because they can't get back home. And it's actually a lot like my son just bought that little vacuum cleaner, and it's like, it just maps the place, but once you pick it up and move it, it doesn't know how to go back to its charging station. So think of a gopher tortoise like that. So that makes it die. So it has to be. It's very sensitive in how you relocate.
I mean,
Nature Conservancy has done a couple of those projects with species like that. And you're absolutely right about that, because they look at a much greater environment than usually. You can't just pick them up and put them in a gopher hole, but you really have to build the environment around them that sustains them. Otherwise, they go back to where they're sustainable and such. So it's just part of a universal kind of animal species. I guess we're all guilty of probably.
what I've seen over the years of
They're very successful in some of their projects, and they've learned, the learning curve was I know it was very difficult for them to do relocations and to learn. They had a lot of failures before they had successes, because they just didn't They can't talk to them, I guess. They don't have computers, can't talk to them.
Eugene, you had something?
I mean, basically, it's, you're gonna have to do a soft release. You're gonna have to slowly release them. I've watched these animals for years when I'm doing my scrub jay surveys over at Seminole State Forest. And I know the individuals by each one of them, and they have all particular behaviors, but you know, I can tell you what time they come home every night to their burrows. They're very much homebodies, just like we are. They know where they live, and you'll see them at an hour and a half to 2 hours before sunset, booking through the scrub directly. Doesn't matter what's in their way, they're going directly to that burrow.
So he said that it has to be more of a soft release and transition, and that they're basically, you know, are homebodies, and they know exactly where their burrow is, and yet they will beeline for it at sunset to get back home.
So,
Is there no speaker in the community center? No one can hear me there? Wes?
Yeah, basically, we're at the mercy of the speaker on this laptop, and I was trying to route it through the projector, but I can't get it to work, so I have to relay your comments. Unless you speak really loud, in which case everybody else, for those ears, will be blown out.
Okay. I have a question about strategy on the Sustainea. I don't know when we need to talk about that, but as a community, how are we going to take it down? And we need to strategize about how we do that. Because we just approved a massive development of the grow yesterday, and now they got all the pipes and stuff that they need to support both developments. No one's reduced the size of the pipes that they were putting across the econ. So we got, somehow now they got capacity. Another thing was,
Hang on, one second, Eugene, 1 second. Because I've got the camera, I'm all spread out.
But we're not using that.
The wire, well, they have to see us.
Because I'm stretched out on the camera. So anyway, Eugene wants to have a strategy session about Sustany and how we can defeat it, because now with the PSP approval yesterday, the pipe is going to be increased to 24 inches. The force main sewer pipe is going to be expanded to 24 inches. And that all but gives a green light to that development. And so he wants us to really kind of set up a time to organize and strategize how we're going to defeat this. Is that a good summary, Eugene?
yeah,
Okay. Do you have anything else you want to add?
not this second.
Okay, all right.
So with Sustany, essentially, we have to think about, so it's gonna go to the LPA, the local planning agency, PNC. And Wes, are you on that board?
No,
No, which one are you?
I was on BGA.
BZA. So with the local plan agent, all that board basically does is say, is this in compliance with the area around, right? That's essentially what it, so that it's like it's a black or white issue for them. And because it's within the Lake Picket text amendment, I cannot imagine that we get a no out of LPA, because there was.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I would say go in there with your evidence of why it's incompatible.
But it's in the Lake Picket text amendment.
But they have to follow the Lake Picket text.
Right, which is 6 homes on average per acre.
But we really have to, go through that, because they may not be following it the way they should. They have not found a GRC. Just to let you know. So this won't go to GRC until it passes transmittal, which means all they have right now is what's the word? Like they gave everything they needed to give.
They have an application.
They have an application that meets everything that they're supposed to pass it. but it hasn't gone through any reviews with staff, like, formal reviews.
Okay. So in terms of strategizing, what Eugene is asking for, when is the best, when to strategize? The next meeting would be April. We're not going to strategize before the first community meeting. That's just community opposition or support. So we know what to do there. Then the next meeting would be April 21st, which would be the LPA meeting. So maybe we have this.
I would say have all your ducks in a row, as if you were going to the CC, and meet with each of the LPA members.
Okay.
Because you could do the same strategy that you did with BC, you could do with the LPA.
Mhm.
And if you want to decide who is probably not worth your time. If
Which one? District one's appointee?
I'm not going to stand record.
The lobbyist that's on the. Should we just call him the lobbyist? So we have on the LPA, that's our local planning agency. The whole job of that department or that committee is just to decide, is this compatible within the confines of the development? And before Betsy Vanderlei, District Commissioner 1, left, she appointed a guy who is a registered lobbyist for homeowners. Anyways, so we know we won't meet with him, but beyond that, so Eugene, we'll do one before maybe the second week of April. Strategize. Can we have this meeting
not with this, no, it has to be
separate? Okay. All right. So I'll
Sounds
add
good.
Eugene on that.
Eugene says that sounds good to him.
Okay. So if we move on from the Lake Pickett updates, we're on to the UCF Porter Group.
Oh, the redistricting.
Oh,
Well,
redistricting.
the maps were approved,
Mhm.
as what was recommended from the redistricting committee.
So nothing really changed except for a week, right?
Well,
And a little bit of District 1.
We took that hump out of District 5.
Yeah.
Between Goldenrod and Goldenrod and Union Park. So that area came out, and then some cleanup around all of Winter Park came into 5. And then that little edge outside of Maitland got pushed into it.
As far as District 5. And then, we went to 2. 3 took a lot of 4, including top.
Half the airport, and then it took the 528, 417, that corner, that northwest corner.
So along the university, do you go up to the Seminole line?
Are the districts enacted once the election, or are they now?
That's the $1 million question. You want to know when the districts go into effect, and I believe the working consensus is that once November's election is complete, when those commissioners take over, the new districts take effect.
That's my understanding.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah, and the school board is doing the same thing, so they're both mimicking each other.
Okay, so the UCF Porter Group, Austin Bell is the,
Austin is on the line. by the way.
oh, great, so you can get.
Austin, go ahead.
Sure. Can everybody hear me?
We're gonna make it work. So if you can do like minute or 45-second snippets, I will relay that to everybody in the room and we'll make it work.
Okay, that sounds good. Well, at a high level, last time we had talked, we were going to wait, kind of hold on this until the Vision 2050 initial draft came out. And so we haven't seen that come out yet. I don't know if anybody has an update. Let's start with that.
All right, so they were gonna hold on doing anything until the Vision 2050 came out. Is there any update on the Vision 2050 right now?
I haven't gotten anything, but we should probably reach out to staff to see if there is anything, just in case they forgot to include me in the email.
Why would they do that? All right, so there's your answer on that, Austin.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't get the name. Who should I reach out to, or is that something that the office will?
We'll handle it. Yeah,
Okay.
keep it updated.
The only thing I'd add is this is something that Eugene and I were kind of kicking around is do we want to pull some of that work forward and not wait for Vision 2050, given stuff like the grow, Sustany coming back, trying to push the work forward a little bit to paint a vision for to talk about what we do want and not just what we don't want. Is it worth pulling forward a little bit? We have to talk through that a little bit more with everybody, I think. And maybe
Okay.
Eugene can add his commentary there as well.
So the question was, do you want to go ahead and start moving forward since things like the grow and Sustany seem to move forward, and rather than wait for Vision 2050, just go ahead and start putting forward of what you do want instead of just what you don't want.
And I would add, one of the ways that we can defeat this sprawl development that's happening is somehow push real hard on redevelopment of the existing areas. And what I tried yesterday in my 2-minute explanation was transferring density credits from developments like the grow, selling them in sort of like a cap and trade type deal. And you can actually sell them to developers like on University Overlay, create a special overlay that gives developers the ability to go up their development numbers if they bought these development credits. So it's sort of like a mitigation bank concept, except now we're going to do development mitigation by mitigating where we don't want the development to go to places where we do want to go. So we give them the benefit of, and this is going to be hard to swallow, a developer will not have to go through much effort to double their density potentially just buying these credits.
So Eugene, if I hear you correctly, so he wants to promote redevelopment of existing areas and do something basically kind of like a land bank. Is that what you're talking about, Eugene? Where
Like a mitigation bank, yeah.
right, so you can basically developers can buy vacant land that will be designated preservation, and then they would be able to go, like, for example, university overlay and increase density. So you have more density, increased density in the areas that are already developed, and they would offset that with credits of buying land that would be set into preservation. Is that a good synopsis, Eugene?
Well, the example would be, for example, the grow has 2,078 units.
Okay.
That could be transferred to another area, and they could sell those credits to another developer in an urban place that we do want to develop. And they can
So like,
make
for
money.
example, sorry, so for example, taking the 2,078 unit credit that the grow has, preserve that piece of land, but then put it into somewhere else in the more urban corridor where we basically authorizing 2,078 residential unit feet permitted where the development already is. That is.
Yeah. Yeah, basically, let's say you have a development right on University and Alafaya, and it has 50 units.
Right.
And they want to go up to 150 units for that development. They want to build a very tall tower, maybe even 200 units. They can buy these credits and put them into that development, and they basically don't have to go back to the BCC for permission, because there's a special overlay that says this area is okay for parking these credits.
Gotcha. Okay. So basically he's saying, like, for example, if somebody wants to develop, they only allow a 50 unit development at University in Alafaya, but they can buy credit and offset and get like 150 or 200 unit development at University in Alafaya if they buy credit in this land preservation at a different area of the county.
That could be a funding mechanism to buy Alafaya.
It could be a funding mechanism.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, so I'm only wondering though, because I mean, we have space in urban Orange County to do that. I guess I'm always a future thinker. So what if though we are landlocked, there isn't, or they couldn't find space to do that, then they'd have to redevelop something in order to do that.
So there's a trend in Europe right now, but what developers are doing is they buy an older building that, let's say, is only 4 stories tall. So they buy that, the people that are within that building they relocate them and they incur that cost. Then they build essentially a very, very tall building with a lot of different, what, you know, they call them flats. And the developers retain the bottom, which is commercial, and the upper levels, which are more of like the penthouse-like areas, they retain those and they get incentivized like tax packages as well. That brings down the cost and it ends up being a really profitable business model for them. I don't know if that's something that we could adopt here, where when you say we become landlocked, when you do, well, these apartments or these condominiums are only have this many, so if we build high instead of build wide, you know, we find a way to reduce that footprint. And also find a way to have more of like a, you know, walkable communities where you've got all of the amenities that you need within that area. So it's like really truly becomes a work, what do they call it? Work, play, live.
Work, live, play. Yeah.
Work, live, play type, but then you also then have, you know, the rural areas that you kind of preserve that are. But you have to have a commission and the local official, you know, like that becomes part of our chart, you know, that has to somehow become part of standing law.
I think that's what Vision 2050 should be. I think that was supposed to go to something like that, but what's happening instead is that their consultant that they got from who lives in Virginia or somewhere thinks it's a great idea to do these hamlets and villages in East Orange County in the middle of nowhere, because they're clustered and it'll be surrounded by preservation that's rural, that will fit in the rural area.
So where
Exactly, and that's why I keep saying, where are they supposed to go to work? Downtown Orlando. So what roads do you think they're gonna drive on? The one single road that we have from East Orange County to downtown Orlando. And how do you think that road's gonna be able to handle that capacity? It's not. So how is that a great idea? It's not. How's that gonna work? It's not. And she just kept saying, well, it works all the way over here in Virginia or wherever it was, that she kept finding examples of that happening. So I decided to look it up. I'm like, okay, pull up in your GPS map, let's see it. And it was like this small community driving like maybe 15, 20 miles into like a city, which wasn't really a city. So it's kind of like another, just say it was really, it was very suburban, rural kind of area. There's no cities, no lots of people, it was like very different than what we have going on here.
They'll just extend the 408 and all will be well.
That wouldn't even, so the traffic studies that we got when the road in Sesame came up, even with that, it would still be an F-rated road. So like, it was like, you would need, I think, what was it, 10 lanes in order to fit the capacity of all the row in Sesame. And that's just Thumb, but that's not like any hamlets or villages further east included.
Austin,
Hey, Wes.
Yeah, Austin, go ahead.
Yeah, the only other thing I'd add is that there's another version of this that we can do in parallel, which is, even if it isn't changing the laws yet, because that will take a long time, is there's like a PR side to this too, right? Which is that telling the world what type of growth and neighborhoods we do want also helps to activate people to say, oh yeah, that's not what we're talking about when we're talking about growth. We want these walkable, dense neighborhoods outside of college campuses. And we can start to tell that story. And by the way, get some developer community on our side, even for the first time, these types of builders, neighbors, stuff like that, and just kind of change the narrative on it so that we can talk about what we do want and why we don't want that, is so that we do get stuff like this. Sorry, that was long.
That's okay. So basically, just starting the conversation that we do want to start promoting walkable communities and putting that narrative out there that, we don't want these sprawling developments. We want something more walkable communities that aren't just on college campuses, and start changing that discussion, even if it's more broad. Is that a good synopsis, Austin?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and the big one is like we can start that work now and try to
Yeah.
change the narrative and get people excited about that and turn them off for all.
Okay, yeah, so you start that conversation now and get people talking about walkable community development and away from urban sprawl. Eugene, your hands up?
Yeah, I mean, to add to that, what we could do is start putting out negative feelings towards the grow and how bad the traffic is. And ultimately, we might want to talk about the economics of what they're doing out on the east side. Doesn't make any sense. They basically lied about they did lie about their transportation impact of one car trip per home was their impact supposedly. And I can't believe that's true. And somehow transportation bought off on that.
So Eugene says we need to work on developing negative feelings around the grow and basically promoting how bad traffic already is out here and that it's only become worse. And that the economics of the east side do not work. Basically, when gas is, we're looking at $5 per gallon gas, commuting back and forth to Orlando is not sustainable for most people. And then also, he took offense to the transportation study of one car trip per day per home, and cannot believe that transportation signed off on that.
I cannot either. We should catch you guys all up. The transportation study that came back to the brother said that out of all those homes that are going to go in, that it's just one car trip per day coming out of those homes. Like there's only one person driving a car that's leaving that house a day. How will they come up with that? I don't know. Do you know?
This was back in 2016. Like, I'm surprised we didn't catch it back then.
They did it during the peak of COVID, one car per day.
No, they didn't.
That was back in 2016 that they did that study. But now, if you look at the studies that come out now, it's like I think it's 2 cars per house per day.
But just 2 car
Or
trips.
2 trips, yeah, so.
So like people don't run their kids out to school and then go back home and
Because it's based on an average, so. What is that?
Oh, that showing up.
Sorry, I don't want to assume I know who you are because we've been on virtual so much.
We have.
I should have just said it because I was right. Oh, hi, Karen. Do you want to join us? Either there or here. There's a microphone there that you could be picked up on.
We made it all the way from Maitland, huh? Yeah.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. I know that's a long drive. And then you're not feeling well too. So.
Who's that?
Karen gets the 10 points.
Yeah.
10 points extra.
Karen, would you like to just introduce yourself real quick?
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Karen Suicide, Maitland. Sustainability, Maitland. Worked on. Yeah. I'm also started a foundation to develop and track mentors. So I actually don't have any teaching. I can't really do this as much. Because foundation is the right part of that stuff, and technically I'm finished about it. So we got to get it off the ground. It's just ridiculous. We haven't had enough. And I'm using the model of our County Public Schools Foundation. When they were underfunded, they started a foundation. Individual schools would raise money, but so would the foundation, because not all schools are as capable or able to raise as much. So by having a foundation to help our rescue partners, then we can make sure that we do a better job. Because right now, it's a dual mission. It's not only help them financially and administratively, and help Orange County Animal Services, and also the 80 rescue partners. It's also to create empathy in our community for responsible pet ownership, which will make a better community. And as an environmentalist first, I see dog and cat as a gateway
to people caring about our wildlife, which in turn makes them understand why you want to take care of the wildlife. So, yeah, I'm excited about that and to grow it. And I know that Commissioner Bonilla has been working on the plans for the new shelter. And I don't know if there's any input from the community yet. I know you hired a company.
Yes, so we just voted on it.
So, I mean, I am not involved in that as much anymore because we want to focus on the foundation. But I'm very interested as to if there's going to be citizen input. Before the money is spent, $3 million is spent on the plan, will people give it input first? Because we spend $3 million on a plan and then maybe somebody comes in and says, what about this? And then they talk to them money about the citizen input.
Well, that great input is why I want you to be the head of the work group for the animal shelter, to help us be able to track that and make sure that the public and the stakeholders are connected to you and whoever decides to join the work group with Jonathan, Diane. Come on, Jared.
All right, Eugene has his hand up and Donna has her hand up.
So you got some interest.
So
All right, so,
Hold on, Eugene, wait, wait. Eugene, go ahead.
no, I made a mistake. Sorry, it's down.
Okay, Donna, go ahead. Donna, you're on mute, by the way.
There we go. Okay,
There you
sorry. There we go. I just wanted to for the setting up the animal place is that have you reached out to some of the rescue groups that are local to this area? Because I know there are several. I've worked with Poodle and Pooch and several other ones. Are you utilizing some of the rescue groups to work alongside you with this planning?
So she's asking if you've reached out to the local rescue groups to coordinate with it.
So we're talking about two different things here. There's the 501c3 foundation that we've set up. We are not frontlines. We are not a rescue foundation. We are there to help Diane Summers and Orange County Animal Services and their 80 rescue partners. Have I reached out to all 80 yet? No. I reached out to several of them. One of the things we're working on at Ms. Summers' request is to find a way to keep animals in their little homes. Because often people on fixed incomes turn them over to the shelter. And really all it takes would be like a $2,000 operation to help the dog or cat make it stay with their owner. They just can't afford it and they feel like they're doing the right thing by turning them over to a shelter or a rescue. And it's, we could prevent that. Yeah, I have talked to several rescues, but not all 80 of them. Now we're also talking about this new proposal of adding to our neighborhood council to talk about this issue. We already know that Commissioner Wilson also has something like that going on too, so I will see where they are in that because I've been talking to their office too. So we might be able to get some people. I don't know how it works because we can do our own thing in District 5, but eventually we want the input from all of the citizens. So I don't know. This is new to me. I haven't thought this through. So anyone who wants to give any input.
Great, so, well, we have that later on in the agenda for us to speak on it. I'm trying to move through the agenda. We were at the UCF corridor group. Are we done with that?
We're done. I think, right, Austin, we're done.
Austin, are you all set?
Yeah, I think we're all set. I appreciate the conversation.
Okay, yep, good.
Okay, so 2050, Vision 2050 was next, which I think we all sit on that. Is there a survey out on that?
There was. And
There was one.
I don't know.
Still active?
I was on it 2 weeks ago and it was, but I don't know if it's still, it's active. I don't know if it's still collecting data or not.
This is- I'm not sure.
What I'm curious about 2050 is that it's in draft form. So now, so they did a lot of surveys before to hear what did residents and citizens want, but now they've got the plan. So now is there a session where they present the plan to the community and then they get feedback from that, or what happens?
I haven't gotten the draft yet. Well, I guess I was left out of that email if they did send it out.
This is the first I'm hearing of the like the little clusters and East Orange, you know.
Yeah, that was during their work sessions. They did like presentations, but they didn't have the draft.
Right.
At that point, they just had like a presentation with ideas
Mhm.
kind of thing. And then they were gathering and survey information on that. They did the community meetings on it as well.
Yeah, we went to.
So I just have to follow up with them because I was expecting them to send us the draft. So they already sent it out and didn't let us know that. All right. Are we good to move on to the wetland ordinance update? Which I'm not sure. That was the last year. Was that you, Carrie, who added that? Or?
Oh, no, this just came off of the previous meeting's agenda, so that's why it's on here. So if it's not appropriate, just strike it. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Oh, we did just get an email about there's from Tammy DeBoo, Orange County Wetland Ordinance. She's doing an update on the wetland ordinance. I want to interview people. Questions. I think I should, last maybe I can forward this email out to you and send it out to all the council members. Because they're asking for volunteers to provide feedback on the Orlando wetland.
Okay. So we'll get that out by tomorrow morning.
It's coming to you right
Oh,
now.
it's coming through right now.
Yeah, sorry, Ross.
Put me on the spot. No worries. Which one did you send me?
West Hodge at Orange County.
Oh, thank you. All right, as soon as it's out, I'll share it.
All right, so,
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. So new business. Further in-person meetings, Zoom option and recording session as well. So I guess it's for us to decide on how we would, where we're going, what we're doing.
so we booked, I think that's through July already locations. We're trying to get it in different locations throughout the district. We actually had it even further east one at Christmas. That was gonna be the first one, but we were having issues booking that. So then this was the next location, then we're moving east. So eventually it'll be in Maitland. So it's, we're trying to find locations that will fit everybody. And we're trying to do the dual meeting too. I mean, you can see we've had a lot of hiccups. And Zoom just isn't very user friendly for some reason. So I really would suggest that people can make it in person. That would be the preferable.
Where's the next one?
Oh, do you remember?
I don't remember. I'm trying to pull.
Was it Golden Dog?
Let's see. February, March.
It might be, oh, I think we did get this Florida Technical College. It's by UCF at the Challenger Parkway. Yeah, most people probably, it's like hidden in there, not a lot of people know about it. But they have an auditorium that we can use. And then the next location after that in May will probably be at the YMCA in Blanchard Park. We're trying to get that location. Oh, actually, I think that may not have worked out either. So then we were looking for a church. So I'm trying to really do in different areas, but they're like this section of District 5 doesn't have any community buildings or locations. So we're trying to find like a church or something that we can have a meeting at there. The same thing with the UCF area. We don't have any county buildings or locations either. So that's why Florida Technical College we're using theirs. And then it have to be free. Yeah, yeah. And then in June, we have the Goldenrod Recreation Center. In July, we have to find a location in the park. And then August, it'll be Maitland. September, College Park area. Or actually, this would be Fairview Shores. Look at maybe the Fairview Shores library. And then in October, downtown, which we're looking at the Orange County Library. And then I thought for November and December, since it's the holidays, that we could do just virtual for those. But I mean, seeing how the virtual is like really hard to work out. I guess up to you guys. Want to do just virtual for that or in person as well.
As long as you don't mind seeing Bristol's greatest hits.
Hey, Wes.
Yeah, go ahead, Austin.
I was just asking if it sounds like if all the dates are set, would we get those sent out ahead of time? Because that'll help us block calendars so we can make the time to come in person too.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get that all squared away once we get the dates and time locations confirmed. We'll let everybody know.
Cool. Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, so I'm gonna try, like, this was our first one, so we just had lots of difficulties. But I think we're gonna try to get this figured out and probably get all of, at least the next 6 months settled within the next 2 weeks, to have that all out and ready to go. Also, it'll give us more time to promote these too, so we can have more of the public attend. Which I definitely need your help from the council members, like, to help promote this as well.
So we're up to the work group sessions, meeting in a breakout session. So scheduling next group meeting, discussing the steps that are needed, reviewing project status reports. I think also pretty much the project status report for the corridor, university corridor. And then begin the evidence-based policy making worksheet. So to my knowledge, we've got these two groups that are running. One is the University Corridor Project. That is me and Austin on it. Austin chairing that one up. And then finding a means and method for the north property. And then Karen has kind of brought forward something with the animal shelter and the animal foundation. So that's how did you want to do this section? You know how we did it online, but
yeah. So I think this is kind of a reminder of like our progress and moving forward, try to get us focused. Because we want to start getting something that we can present and to the board and start moving on that. And then we have a couple of new items for possible work groups. We have the animal shelter. Just kind of the purpose of this is to actually help get that animal shelter going, get the community engagement, like you said, any other ideas that need to be addressed. You mentioned maybe District 1 had some people, so perhaps you could coordinate with them as well. But it'll be, you with the volunteers trying to help work that out.
Yeah, I need to think that through because I don't want to jeopardize my foundation either, which is to tackle. We have a good IRS status, and we want to use that because we want a real foundation. We want a foundation where you give a lot of money at the end of the year for taxes, what is the legacy, so that our county can just really grow that money. So hopefully this would divorce itself from the foundation completely and just go ahead and focus more on the shelter and the involvement of the public in the shelter. Because they are building a new one and that will be a 3-year process, this is a great time to have people involved. So they can make sure that this time, in my lifetime, there's been 2. And I know that it's important to look at the population growth. We're not seeing an explosion maybe in Orange County, but we are seeing it in surrounding. We also have to take care of Orange County pets. A lot of times, we end up with pets that are not just Orange County. And we are seeing a lot of dogs and cats in the shelter. And we also want to face the fact that they have something called a live release rate. And dogs are around, I think, 90. And the cats are like 80 things. So we want to help that. And then also we have heard, I heard in the summers that Pet Alliance will not be focusing as much on the dog. So that's going to leave Orange County with maybe more dogs than we've had before. Pet Alliance is focusing on cats, which is great for the cats because they have a lower live release rate. But then it's also an education issue, just like our environmental issues are. So that might be a way that this community can help too, to help people understand why we maybe don't want to buy a cute little puppy shop. My daughter's classmate just had to send her a bunch of information about a cute little puppy, and now the puppy's been turned over to Pet Alliance. So it happens, and people don't think through commitment with a family member. There's a lot of things there that we can even go there, which is just a great start. Whoever's interested, just let me know. That's probably the first thing I would suggest you do is see it. They don't even have air conditioning right now at all. So that is part of why.
You mean the main location down by Millennium? Yeah.
There's only one location, and I actually brought up satellite offices because I am lazy and live in Lakeland. And they would ask people to volunteer, and I'm like, well, can you make them closer? That's probably not going to happen. And the Conroy, what I'm hearing, is just a great location. It is built up around there. When I was little and adopted my first puppy from there when I was 4 years old, there was nothing there. And now they actually can take advantage of how many people pass by there. So, citizens, let's buy a marquee or something, and let's put pictures of the dogs on there as people are going by and the cat. That's great. And then people will be like, oh, I'm gonna get to see this dog or cat that they have up there. So just those kind of things need to be brought up now before we go and spend a bunch of money. And then we're like, ooh.
If you've been down there lately, there's plenty of time to sit and look at those pictures while you're in traffic.
Let's not pass a sales tax so that we can have more traffic so they can see the, no, I'm just kidding.
If I can say something good about Diane, because I volunteer for the shelter, I'm a foster, and I mostly, foster kittens in the summer. And I think they're doing a great job with all the advertising, all the social media. all the pet photography that they're doing, they're putting all the, the pets that are big, that they have been there for, months and months, and they get adopted eventually. So I think she's doing a great job. So I really passionate.
All right, so do we want to make a motion to create a animal shelter work group and get some volunteers? Create the group, who's gonna be on it?
Okay, I need the motion to create a work group for the animal shelter. Okay, so we will have, we need to, I think for the animal shelter, we are all very visionary, because that means always big, really huge goals, but is there, when we talk about the animal shelter crew, you're close to it, so can you give us like a, what would be the purpose of that group? Is it to generate awareness in the community? Is it about?
I would give it 3 goals. Short-term goals that can be done right now, like tomorrow, to help the shelter, whether we discuss policies, like right now, if we surrender a pet or cat, then they could be euthanized in as little as 3 days. But if they're a stray, then they have 5 days. So maybe we know why some of that has happened. But maybe a look at some of those policies and see what Ms. Summers thinks about changing some of those policies or explaining why they're there. That's easy. That seems to me like something that's a goal that could be reached within a very short time frame. Then, of course, the goal of the shelter, the actual structure. And I think it's the big thing. And what we could look at what they've already done, because I think that's on other shelters. And we could just give our input as taxpayers. We are not experts. Those who volunteer there, work there, they're the experts. But we could give our input as customers, because I do think Summers is doing a great job of making it a customer-based situation. And I think that needs to continue. And then the third thing would be education. And that is constant. How can we continue to create money, fun, whatever, so that we get into certain neighborhoods information about responsible pet ownership?
It has to come from school.
I agree. I mean, I'm involved in education committees. And obviously being involved in the education committees is what gave me the inspiration when I walked into the shelter and adopted one of my little doggies. And I was like, yeah, gosh, they need help here. They need help here. They really need help. They are just overwhelmed. And I think education would definitely be a key component. So we just, brainstorm.
All right, so do you want us to put an email together and then work for animal shelter for 3 kind of goals, and then ask for volunteers and set up that group, or do you want to get volunteers now?
I think we should get, if we don't have the people online and let's take email.
Okay. All right, what's the
Yeah.
email for volunteers?
All right, so the next item is the stormwater pond codes. And what we discovered with this grow, the SP, is, we need to look at all of their retention ponds that they're having. And we really discovered via Dr. John Fow at UCF, the inadequacy of Orange County's code for stormwater ponds. For example, we have a clay, it's called a clay
Really.
pan. They're put into
Clay
this
pan.
pan, yeah, clay
Pan.
pan.
Yeah.
And if you punch through that clay pan while you're building a retention pond, you're actually not catching much of the pollution. it's just all draining down and eventually goes to aquifer. So the stormwater pond codes for Orange County really need to be updated. And I think that if this one were to move forward, I think that there's some really highly educated experts in the area that actually use that go beyond John though. You know, John is very good at it, but you know, and I know we also have we've got
Anna Pepper.
Anna Pepper is in stormwater. We've got Lewis who's in civil engineering, so he definitely knows about stormwater plans. Environmental background. So, but I think
Or
that's something that.
I was gonna say, I'm kind of a little bit familiar. I've kind of designed a couple of them, and you said I was trying to understand the issue a little bit. Is that you know, with infiltration due to the soil types, and I think either trying to change the rule or something. Can you give me a little bit more background on the rule change, or I guess what how would that work?
So he understands that it's got some things to do with soil types. And so he was wondering if you have more information about the change that's being discussed.
So it's numerous changes. So some of the changes are like there's discrepancy between if you put a stormwater pond next to a natural wetland, does it drain that wetland into the stormwater pond? And so that was one of the concerns. If you punch through that clay pan, that's another concern. The dredging that has to happen in the stormwater ponds isn't because it's happening, it's like the amenity facilities that are being maintained by HOAs. HOAs are actually not dredging that gunk at the bottom. And so that water becomes very contaminated, but nothing stays permanent where it is. It's still, you know, continues to seep and things like that. So it's just looking at the existing code and then improving. And
This is for Orange County
yes.
code.
Yes, Orange County code.
Yeah, I've designed a couple stormwater ponds, and usually, you know, we do geotechnical borings into them to verify the soil types. I'm not familiar with the other research, but yeah, that's something that definitely sounds interesting. I'm not sure. I haven't personally seen the Orange County codes, done more FDOT, but yeah, that sounds interesting. The research that they're doing as well.
I could do you have John Felt's suggestions for the conditions to all Orange County large-scale developments?
Did I get those, or were they just? I think I just got the specifics to the grow.
But he was referencing them. I think I'm gonna forward the conditions. It's in a Word document.
I've got that.
Yeah, I think if Luis could get together with John and probably hear his concerns and ideas. And then also take some time to look at the Orange County codes. And I know Anna Pepper was very interested in water quality too. She might be able to join in on this as well.
Yeah, and it was also talking about like the landscape that goes around the pond. Like it shouldn't just be a pond with St. Augustine grass that goes up to the pond. You know, so it has stuff to do with the landscape.
This is Eugene.
Yeah, Eugene.
This would be under Public Works, Roads and Drainage Division.
And they don't have best management practices that follow natives being planted around.
Yeah, I think that at one point in time, they probably had best practices that they were trying to follow, but they haven't been updated. So now there's a lot more research that has come out and the codes need to be updated to new best practices.
I'm not familiar with
The aeration is changed.
But the issue is currently, I'm going to speak for a moment. This is Eugene. The issue is the stormwater designs today basically take care of the water. They do very little for treatment. And that's probably what John is most concerned. It's not doing the ecological services that the natural wetland systems are doing. They're not taking out the phosphates, nitrates, and all the other contaminants that plants can do, which the Orlando wetlands, for example, does. So the dream would be is, can we design a man-made system that emanates the natural filtration of plants along with the retention of water in a much more concentrated way?
So Eugene's point is that they're not doing any kind of actual treatment with these stormwater facilities. They're just doing mass collection and storage during rain events. And that we would like to see something a lot more like the Orlando wetlands, where it's an actual, true wetland that biologically treats the water, removes contaminants, nutrients before that water is put back into the system. And that, really basically what these systems are right now are just for bulk water storage and not for any kind of treatment. Luis, you had something you want to say? Or Louis, sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say, usually stormwater ponds, they do both. They capture runoff for flooding, and the other thing they do is actually clean the water. And usually the way they kind of do it is that the water stays there for a period of time, and then it goes up, and sort of the clean water goes over what they call control structures. So if you look at any ponds, those boxes, those are the ones that kind of control the level. I'm not familiar, with sort of the new research. That's sort of the way I was kind of been taught about it. But yeah, I think there's definitely better ways probably to do it. And I'm not familiar with the kind of new research that's going on, just kind of what I've learned how to design them as well. But I think definitely that there can probably be more better ways, such as implementing plants in there that will absorb the nutrients as nitrogen, phosphorus, and also the other research with it penetrating into the groundwater and adjacent wetlands. I'm not familiar with that, but they do kind of have a component to clean them. So they're both for volume and for treating the water. There's certain regulations with that. I'm familiar with transportation, more for projects on side roads, not for Orange County.
Let me put a pause on you for 1 second so I can.
Yes.
digest
Oh, sorry.
No,
I guess they're not hearing me, right? I'm
Right.
confused.
So,
sorry.
Did y'all hear everything? Okay, no, okay. So basically, these stormwater retention are for bulk collection. And what happens is they collect in, and then they have those boxes, those overflow boxes on them. And that, the sediment settles down to the bottom, and then in theory, the cleaner water is at the top level, and that water, as the retention pond fills that spillway, spills that water out into other wetlands or wherever the overflow water goes. He has done a whole lot of research on the vegetative treatments, or how to do it with the plant life, but also you talk about the penetrating the groundwater and how to address those issues as well, right, Louis?
Yeah. Yeah. So there is kind of a they're sort of designed to treat the water, but I'm not familiar with that new research. But if they wanted to share that, want to look over it, I'd be glad to look over it and maybe look at the code.
Sounds good. Yeah, so he's willing to look at it. A lot of his background with this is in the transportation aspect of it, and FDOT regulations and requirements. So he would love to see what the code is, and is happy to review it and make recommendations.
Great. Guess we should make a motion to create the groups, right? Yeah. So. Yes, let's make that motion.
Louis, would you like to make a motion to create the stormwater management group?
I'm already kind of on one committee. I don't want to commit myself to another one, to be honest with you.
Okay. He's on one,
yes.
and doesn't want to commit to another one at the moment.
Okay.
But yeah, if you need any questions or anything, you can give me a phone call or something. But yeah, I'm not in a position to overextend myself at the moment.
Okay, so he's happy to be a consult, but he doesn't want to be leading it just because he doesn't want to overextend himself.
Can we research this a little bit more? Just,
Yeah, maybe we need to just do kind of an overview. Maybe we need to familiarize ourselves with the code first.
Yeah, I was gonna say if they have any questions on anything, yeah, if they give me a call or anything, I'd be glad to kind of teach what I know.
Or if it's preempted, we have to fight for it in the fight.
thing I've observed in my neighborhood is, they, they just want to come in with their tractors and mow and weed. And so, I mean, as our neighborhood has tried to have native plants and have things planted that would help treat the water, and just as a general rule, the Orange County folks, they just didn't want anything to do with it. They said it had to stay, just as that. I mean, they're ugly and horrible looking, but they just want to open the gate, mow, and get out. So
those are policies that the
Yeah.
county needs to update so that
And
it's not doing just
This-
that.
I know.
yeah,
And
and
that's
so.
how we make this, not our lakes, Orange County lakes people.
Oh, no, it's not the lakes. It's a stormwater pond that's
Right.
man-made infrastructure.
I know lately we have something like that comes into a lake. We're having a lot of trouble. And we have old filtering equipment, and it costs a lot to change it. That's why I'm working hard to get like the water in our charter. Because by doing that, then people can be more empowered. That's the hope, if we get that right, because it's their private property and they want to be clean. I don't know, it all,
It is. It's just, I mean, it's a great idea and a great goal. It just seems like it's gonna immediately butt heads with the county and not.
Yep.
I
mean,
think the county, well, right now we're trying to update a lot of stuff.
okay.
So to have that assistance go through the code and update it, I think will be welcomed actually. And then, getting EPD to work along with this too, because back in the day, when this all was created, they were just so siloed. They didn't really work together. Now things are getting better, so I think it'll be welcome.
Eugene, you wanted to say something? And then I got Donna after that.
We had talked about this on the grow about the design. The problem is when you get contractors, wherever you, county, city, whatever, they're gonna go there and just mow right down the water. What you got to do is you got to create a barrier of where you don't want them to go. So that's why I was explaining when we were doing the talk last week on the grow, that you have to put a physical stones or bricks to say to the contractor, you only go up to these points. Don't touch anything beyond that. You literally have to put a wall to protect the place you don't want them to mow, because most of these people don't know plants. They have no clue. All they know how to do is go on a mower. They're truly clueless when it comes to plants. They know how to run a mower. That's about it. I've debated these folks.
Right, so he's just basically saying that when they construct these stormwater management ponds, that they need to, put some kind of physical barrier, whether it be vegetation or rocks, because what happens is basically what we've been talking about, these landscape people come in, they run the mowers right up to the edge, all of that lawn clipping gets blown into the water, those nutrients go into the water and then they leave. So this is definitely something that you've been advocating for. Trying to make sure that we work on. And Donna, you like your hand up, go ahead.
I just have a question in regards to if who is actually managing any of these ponds that are in all of these neighborhoods. So if they are contaminated and those children in those neighborhoods are going into those ponds, possibly fishing, throwing rocks, walking around a little bit, who is actually responsible for going in and testing those stormwater retention ponds to make sure that they are not contaminated and the children and the people in that community are not being contaminated?
So the question was, who's monitoring these stormwater ponds for pollutants, and then making sure that a lot of these areas, they have kids that are playing in them, people that are fishing. Ultimately, who's responsible for making sure that these stormwater ponds are environmentally safe and maintained?
So if anyone is doing that, it would be Public Works, Roads and Drainage Division. I'm not sure. I want to say, I would hope that they are doing that, but
What about EPD? Would they be involved?
I know EPD does that with lakes.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
they,
but-
EPD does test all the lakes.
Like
They do
a
that.
lot of HOAs are responsible for it.
The HOAs do it
Like
too.
yesterday's PSP with the grow, the county is in charge of the retention ponds, but then the amenitized retention ponds, the HOA assumes responsibility of them. An HOA doesn't have the expertise to manage.
I was gonna say, my HOA in Gotha, it was, they would just bring somebody out, they would, okay, there's been so many cubic yards of soil deposit or whatever, and the pond, we've gotta excavate it, and then that's it. Like, that's basically the extent of what they know. Also, it also would depend on where it is, because sometimes it's municipalities, if it's in a municipality, it would be that city, or it could be the county, or like we also the HOA as well, it kind of depends on where they're at.
I was gonna say that stormwater ponds, by definition, they're kind of a place to put polluted water in order to treat it. What the kind of the way the stormwater pond works, it clean at that spot, it's dirty, but then what it's avoiding is water going into actual like rivers and lakes. So by definition, they are, and as I'm not familiar with people usually doing testing on stormwater ponds because they're
So-
by definition dirty.
So by the definition of stormwater pond, that was the list. By definition, stormwater pond is dirty because it is the storage place for all the runoff from the roads and the highways and whatnot. And so he doesn't know that it would be monitored because by its very definition, it would be a place filled with contaminants.
So I think maybe like if we did anything with policies, that big one for John Beth was like, don't punch through the clay pan.
Right.
That's a really solid way to retain what you've got. And, some places they're making these pickings so that the ponds are like 18 feet deep, so they're way down past the clay pond.
Right.
It's like,
Basically, it's the opposite. And then I assume it needs to have natives to filtrate. And it's dirty sitting there, but the idea is that it filtrates.
right. That makes,
But most of them don't. I mean, like all the ones in our neighborhood, they actually spray the barrier. I mean, the edges of it with dicot all the time. So it's just a toxic, awful thing. I mean, kids shouldn't be fishing or swimming or playing.
They,
And that's just how it is here.
Eugene,
the
go ahead.
stormwater treatment decays to be.
Right, knew what they
Water
were.
pond.
It's sad.
No
What was that,
one
Eugene?
maintains it.
One more time, Eugene, sorry.
The problem with these ponds is they decay no one maintains them properly. So you end up with algae blooms because all the runoff from the yards and stuff causes nutrient blooms. Then you call the lake doctors in and they spray it and it kills everything. And then you repeat it because now you put all the nutrients back in and it blooms again. They spray again. The whole bottom is muck.
Yeah.
And no one's ever maintained it. Only thing I can do is a natural system. And that's why I had argued that potentially what they need to do is on the grow is buy that piece of property and create a massive retention treatment area, much like what the Orlando wetlands is. It's really the only thing you can do.
So Eugene's point is that they're just basically a big pot of just contaminants, and then you dump yard clippings in there, and then they call out lake doctors, they come out and spray, which, kills all the nutrients that are in there after like algae bloom, for example. But then we get all the runoff again, we get another algae bloom, and we call the lake doctors back out to come and spray, and it's just this never ending process. And he thinks that, this is kind of why he was advocating with the grow, taking those 49 acres, 48 acres, and turning them into some kind of a natural filtering wetlands, because that's what it's gonna take to get these pollutants and nutrients out. Otherwise, it's gonna be spraying algae bloom, spray algae.
Yeah, I mean,
All right, so, we want to maybe, I think Anna Pepper would be very interested in something like this, but she's not here. We want to maybe send out an email and see what the interest is, and maybe at the next meeting, we can, then probably go on creating it.
Yeah, I suggest that we move it to the. I don't, I think she'll probably need to hear the discussion dialogue around this. I don't think, like an email going out with it, but she needs to hear the line of thought. That's why we're looking at that. Okay, so then we're up to the new council members.
Oh, the rural boundary.
Oh,
Put
real
that on
boundary.
the ballot,
Yeah,
which that is kind of time sensitive, like,
super.
so. I mean, we already have a draft.
What is that? Okay, so the rural boundary we would have to, we're past the time period for it to go to the charter committee. So that,
So the charter
so it has
and
to be citizen
by
initiative.
petition, it's out, it's too late. The only way to get the board and commissions to put out the ballot. So
Okay.
it's, I guess getting citizen engagement to, I'll have to put forward a memo to get on the agenda, and then having citizen engagement show up and provide their
So-
statements on what they want.
Maybe, I mean, in order to get something like that to work, we would need to have like some type of like, like a Tuesdays is the BCC. So if we were to do publicity where and PR where we were to call it like a rural roundup day or something, and have people come and almost make it be like a, show up in your cowboy boots or cowboy hat, even if, that's not where you live, but if you would be in support of this, just come and sit in Western attire or something. Because that would get media attention. Once it gets into the media, we can get further movement with that. But I know that there's a lot of people that would be, it doesn't matter if you live in the urban area or the rural area, a lot of people are have an interest in protecting rural lands. So I think it's just a way to theme it, to get the right attention, to get people to come up with a good idea. And I think that, is that where we wanted to have super majority or something to, yeah. So I think that, I don't remember, but there was a catch with that, so we should revisit the writing. What is the time sensitivity?
April.
It's May, at the latest May.
So that would like basically say we cease, we pause on all the other projects to get enough and pick a Tuesday date, call it Rural Roundup Tuesday. Send out information to everybody that says, if you're interested in supporting this, regardless of where you live, show up in Western attire, like even just tie a bandana around and come and sit in the BCC audience, and notify the news outlets that what's going on and to make a, to try to make a movement that way.
And I think the Winter Park just passed language on their charter to do supermajority for land use changes. I think that would be a great starting point for language.
Yeah, maybe we could get Winter Park to support us and help us out with this as well, the gathering people, and if they just voted on it. I know, perfect date. I could probably get this on the agenda. It'll be May 10, the same day as us to me.
That would be good.
And then just let people know, take the whole day off, so in the morning we could talk about the rural
Yeah,
boundary, and then stay for the afternoon.
and sit in Western attire.
And maybe, I could, my office can probably get some donations and find like a rural roundup, maybe picnic out in the the grass area that we have at the county building for lunch.
Yeah. That would be a good idea. It's a good.
It'll be a nice day. For
Oh,
us.
Emily, are you going to be restricted by that legislation that just passed as to what the boards can do as far as what's on a referendum? What they can put out, the information they can put out? I just heard the blurb of it and I didn't know that I understood the technicalities of it, but it sounds like it's part of the preemption, quote unquote, generality that the boards are no longer going to be, if they have a referendum, are going to be able to put out the kind of information that they have in the past as such. Are you familiar with that, or
Well, I know we've
is
always,
it too new?
it's kind of, we kind of had a briefing on it, but the way it's always been, we couldn't do paid like promotion or advertising or campaigning to
Right.
support something on the ballot. But we were able to send out a letter out, at least informing people about it. And if they had passed what they wanted to, like the mayors are doing these community meetings that he's doing for the tax sales, the transportation sales tax, he wouldn't have been able to do that. But the way it was passed, he is still able to do that. And I
Okay,
believe we're still able to at least send out a letter to, inform or educate. But there's just some things we can't, like we just can't promote
right.
something.
Right, you can't, so I sat in on the Senate committee for this bill. You can still do, like, a constituent calls and asks, you can provide commentary. You can still do like community information meetings. You can't advocate for a position one or the other. And then you can no longer do any kind of like a mailing. So like if you wanted to send something out on behalf of the county saying, this is what can happen, it's how we're gonna do it. My understanding is you can't do that anymore. But you can do neutral informational sessions and you can still answer direct questions, but you can't expend taxpayer money to advocate for a decision.
So what the activities you're talking about as such would not, you don't think would come into conflict with that?
Oh, I'm just providing people with a picnic.
Yeah, if we're just doing lunch, if we're just doing lunch at the BCC and having it donated, yeah, that's not.
Yeah, I didn't understand the nuances to it, but I assumed that there was more going on than they were just reading off as far as what had happened. So,
I thought you were talking about the other bill where
oh, that one
the
too,
loss
yeah.
of business revenue that they could actually sue and yeah.
Yeah, this wouldn't fall under that either, because you're just doing a super majority to vote on land use stuff.
Got it.
You're not, and that's exempt from
Right.
that anyway, land use decisions. Yeah, that would fall.
Eugene has his hand up. And you're on mute. There you go.
Are you proposing that we should write some type of charter amendment that we present to the BCC to see if they would pass it, to put it forward? Or are you just looking for a modification in what percentage of people need to vote on to get something? Because in the east of the econ, what is rural service area? Is Sustainia still in the rural service area? Is that, I'm not sure
Yeah.
where the rural service area is anymore.
So he's
Yeah.
asking, would we be looking for specific language to be crafted to add to the charter? Or are we looking to get the BCC to do something? And the other question was, how would we define where the rural boundary is? Because, it used to be east of the econ, and now that's no longer the case. So what are we defining as the rural boundary for a ballot initiative question?
So I believe the one that I have written, I think it was outside the current urban service area boundary, because I needed to get support from the west side too, who are having similar issues. So it included them as well. So we currently have an urban service area boundary, so anything outside of that, to go outside of that, would need a supermajority vote to change, to do a comprehensive land use amendment. So Sustany on that, and the question related to that, let's say something like that does get passed, what they're trying to do right now is a comprehensive land use plan amendment. So that would fall under the supermajority if that was done after this got on the ballot and was passed by the people. And it would go onto the charter, something that would be on the charter if it got passed.
Eugene, your hand back up.
I'm not sure what supermajority means, since unfortunately HOAs are forced on us, the supermajority in the HOA is 90%. Is that what we're talking about? Hopefully it would be 90%, because that's put on us in HOAs by the board, the county commissioners and commission and the county, the city commission.
Yeah, no, they would
They
need
can
it.
live with
Is
the
it
same
2/3
thing.
or 3/4?
Supermajority is 50 plus 1.
No, that's
No,
that's
that's simple.
majority.
It's simple majority plus 1.
So we would be pushing it to a 2/3 majority.
So why don't we actually force the
Because we have
city and the
7, it would be 5 people out of 7.
So 5 out of 7.
Can you just make it unanimous? We can write it the way we want.
yeah, we're writing the thing, so let's not, supermajority is easy. That's
5 out
fine.
of 7 would be a supermajority.
Yeah, that's
Austin's
simple.
point was make it unanimous because we're writing it. I don't,
I wouldn't even get that on the ballot.
yeah, I don't think that would fly through a legal challenge.
Well, let's put
I
the same.
think
motion
Robert's
we put on-
rules is 2/3, but you can set up, the legislature can set up a supermajority because they do it. Each legislature in the country, I think, has different rules about
Well,
supermajority, what constitutes a
Yeah,
supermajority. So I think you can do that in your bylaws. But if you accept Robert's rules, it's 2/3.
I'm about 80% certain it's 2/3. So we can double check and get clarification.
the point I'm making is the county right now forces HOAs on us because of developers. It's a
Right.
90% to change our charter or our rules in our homeowners association. Let's do the same that beloved county commissioner, because if they want to put this on us, why not put that back on them? That it's 90%.
So he's saying that
Otherwise, make it 2/3.
the HOA requirement is 90% dictated by the county. And he's saying, why don't we put that back on the county at 90%? We'll look into what the charter says about supermajority and we can make that determination. And we'll look at what
We really want to make this really painful to change land. Otherwise, yesterday was a 6-1 vote, so that would have passed.
Right.
Well, remember, the thing is, you first have to get the Board of County Commissioners to approve to put this on the ballot.
Right. Yeah, the first battle is getting to 4. So,
So that means you want a bunch of people to show up at a certain date. Okay.
Right.
So if we have that information, send that to us, so basically all, send it to all our groups.
we're gonna kind of hit on that in just a second. So, yeah.
Kelly,
Yes.
leader or co-leader.
Sorry.
So yes, I'll provide you all with the wording that I have. What I need is to finalize that and then send a memo to the county at least 2 weeks in advance of whatever date I want to put it on, so that they can put it on the agenda. And then that day, the public will be able to speak on that item, but at 9 o'clock in the morning during public comments. Yeah, and I was looking for it to be on the same day as Sustany. Like I said, people could take the day off.
I'm wondering if
Be
it
there for the morning, we'll have a picnic at the lunchtime, and then they could stay for the Sustany case.
Do you think it would be more effective? Because, when we talk about building awareness, there has to be multiple points of contact. So would it be better to have the rural roundup Tuesday happen prior to Sustany so that people see because all the district commissioners get a vote on Sustany. But we don't get to vote on that. But if this is a county-wide where you've got people who stand up and say, I'm from District 1, I support a rural boundary. I'm from District 2, I support a rural boundary. And then the following BCC meeting is Sustany. And now they've just heard the previous BCC meeting that there are people within their district supporting a road boundary, meaning that they wouldn't be in support of building or could, but
Because you have the morning and then the afternoon.
When-
Sustenance in the afternoon.
When is sustenance?
May 10th.
So the one before is April 26th. And you have to have that in basically like next week.
Or March.
I know,
Oh,
but because April 5th is the next one,
yes.
and then the 19th is after that, so there's not a whole lot of that. Wait a minute, that doesn't work. 22nd, so the next one is April 5th. Then it would be April 19th, then May 3rd. Are they skipping?
No, it's May 10th. They may, they may be skipping a week or something.
There's-
Our emails and calls are valuable as people showing up.
Depends on who you're talking to.
Well, I'm simply asking because people might not be able to show up for that one date. If you come in, if you have 2 dates, they might be able to show up for one another, or they'd have more time to follow up with an email if they did show up. I'm just trying to figure out. I mean, in the real world, people being really busy with what they're doing. They're scheduled to, I think whatever you can get set up, people will do it best.
No sound. I don't hear anyone.
Sorry, we had to go away for a second, go back.
Where did it go?
We went on mute. so
Oh,
I
we
can
went on
have-
mute.
We
Okay.
went on mute so I can have my civil.
Okay. Yeah, so definitely in person is more valuable. But if people cannot show up, emails can help as well. I know sometimes the mayor had been like, my office got this many emails on this in opposition. I'm not sure if we want to go against the people. So I was like, I'm really terrible at impressions. I tried.
Your second role as a comedian.
Yeah.
So what are you thinking? May 10th? Are you thinking May 26th? What are you?
I think May 10th because that Sesame is kind of on that day. It'll be good to have a rural roundup day, and then it's just like in the morning, hit a fun lunch. We can have the media there as well, press conference, picnic, and then the Sesame.
Can you have someone bring a cow? Just have a cow and buffalo. Great.
We have some horses.
We can get a horse.
If
I'll
we
get
can
a
find
horse.
some people who have horses and bring them out.
Okay. All right. let's-
Well-behaved horses.
Yeah.
Some goats. Okay, so then we're up to our new council members who we introduced in the beginning. So I'm gonna skip ahead, so I'm gonna move to announcements.
Okay, announcements. I will let Wes do an announcement of the rate control ordinance.
So kind of tying in with what we're just talking about, we have 2 weeks from yesterday for the rent control ordinance. This was tried back in 2020 and it was brought forward as a freeze and it did not pass. We're bringing it back as a cap. The cap of 5% for the CPI, whichever is lower. And we're also amending it to where it only applies to properties that are 4 units or larger. So a lot of the feedback were the smaller mom and pop type investors where they own a couple of homes. These were their, investment for retirement, and they did not want to see that kind of a control on that. So we kind of went back and tweaked it. And of course, since then, despite assurances from the apartment industry to the contrary, where it was going to take them 30 months plus to recover from COVID-19, and there was no possible way rents were going up. The last 3 or 4 months, rents have been up 29% year over year.
And that's average. In
And that's-
some areas,
yeah.
it was 50%,
Yeah.
which are mostly the low income communities.
Right,
Were higher increases than higher income communities was lower increases.
right, yeah, and yeah, it's disproportionately affecting our lower income zip codes. And of course, that would also impact our lower income workers, which we know are disproportionately typically Black and brown workers and female workers, which also we know inherently make less on average. So anyway, we're going to be starting a full court press over the next 2 weeks to get as much information out as possible. We're encouraging everybody to write letters. If you know someone that's been impacted by a rent increase, let the county commissioners know, hey, I'm in your district. This is not just a District 5 thing. You know, please email the mayor as well. We're going to be holding a press conference in about a week to raise community awareness. And then, of course, on the 5th, we'll be happy to bring people in person if possible. So, you know, we're going to try to really work on this to get ballot language onto the November ballot. And we think it'd be a good partnership with, you know, a couple of other ballot initiatives that are going on. But if any help we could get to help us support that and drum up community support, we appreciate it.
What were your opposition votes?
So I believe I probably had Maribel supporting. Wilson wasn't there.
I think that was it. I think you had Gomez Cordero. Uribe was kind of interested but didn't bite. Based off of her comments that she voted no. But I think now we have a better fight if we have to.
Hey, Wes.
Yeah, Austin, go ahead.
I didn't hear if there was discussion around it at the BCC. I didn't hear it, but if the concern is overstopping new supply, one best practice to sort of cut off that talking point is to only to not have the supply to any new construction. So it's only applying to existing housing. So just a thought, if you feel like you're not going to get the 4 votes and you need something, that's just a thought, and maybe how to get that.
Yeah, it would only apply to lease renewals. So therefore, anything new would automatically not fall under that umbrella. So it would only apply to when those tenants that moved in went to renew their lease in 12 months. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Okay, then yeah, I don't know why they wouldn't support. Well, anyway, that's.
Well, we know exactly why they wouldn't support.
Yeah. Clarifying question: would this all apply to any apartments in like City of Orlando or just unincorporated?
That's a good question. Do you have the authority to implement that on municipal apartments, or is it only in the county?
So the way the charter works is that the charter overrides municipalities if they do not have their own ordinance.
Catch that, Austin?
Yep. Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, that's what the charter says.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the only other thing is that on land use stuff. No, I guess, yeah, this would cover. Yeah.
And just so that you all know, the language is that it's a emergency order. You have to document that it is an emergency situation that requires this to be addressed, which we believe the dramatic increase constitutes an emergency. It has to be passed by referendum. It's only good for 12 months at a time, but once it's passed, the county commission has the right to renew annually. Did I get that all right? So that's that.
And the mayor, do you remember what the mayor's statements were on that or anything?
I'll have to go back and watch it. I don't remember.
Yeah. But I'll just say a lot of the real estate associations came out against it. even though I talked with them and worked in their concerns into it, it's just the way associations work. They're just completely opposed to it, no matter how you make it fit their concerns or not. So that's what they did. And they dropped an endorsement of me. I was like up to, so, they do endorsements on campaigns. They give donations as well. So we have that. Yeah. Yeah. So that was what I was going up against.
So to the transportation session, number 3 is April 5th. 2022. It's already, this is the mayor's, right?
Yeah.
So I attended one and didn't have big support. So is that a common theme at the other ones?
Well, he makes it sound like he has lots of support. Staff has briefed me on it. The staff makes it sound like these meetings are going really great and he has lots of support. And then we had people coming to the BCC meetings supporting it.
Yeah.
I will say though, the support though also came with some of the support comments also came with some concerns. Like they want to make sure that whatever's passed, that there's a clear picture of what's going to be done with the money. I think that is everyone's concern. It's a very legitimate concern. You're going to make us pay these taxes. What are you going to do with it?
I will tell you, he is fully committed to getting it passed. He is putting everything he's got behind it. He's very confident, like that's part of, you saw the municipal portion of it. He's working with all of the municipal mayors to make sure that he's got their buy-in. That he's putting everything he's got into getting it passed.
Yeah, and I was reading some articles on it today too. I guess, he has 2 people, because I didn't know he had any opposition for mayor. I thought he was running unopposed. So there's 2 people running against him for mayor now, and they're opposed to the transportation sales tax.
But they're so.
I've never heard of them.
Is the audit part of the audit committee is such, is that going to be part of the legislation? Is that set in stone then? It's not just a pipe dream as such? Because that was very critical, as I understand, in passing the 1% for the schools, was they made a big point out of having an audit committee, and I guess the audit committee functions very well as far as is follow up and back up and so forth as to what's going on. Is that set in stone as far as he's concerned, or is that still up for grabs?
No, they still have to do that audit. I forget what it's called, but yeah, there's a committee that if the board says you want to move this forward, then it has to go through that committee for audit. But I will say that one thing about this is that it's going to go on the ballot, but the people are not allowed to vote on how the money gets spent. So we can't put on the ballot language, this is how we're going to spend it. So it's something that has to come before that the board agrees, like this is how we're going to do this. And then the people vote on the ballot, trusting that that's what we're going to do. And it sounds really,
It wouldn't have
the way it comes out of my mouth right now.
No, I know, but I listened to it. So when I went to the first meeting, and this was primarily the ACO concern, well, how do we know that you're taxing us? What's the guarantee that you're using it to improve our roads? There was no guarantee. And so I left that meeting saying in my head, like, I would vote for a transportation tax if I know for certain that the roads that I'm using are improved. I don't use I-4, I don't go in that way, but I know that there's others who do. So there was just there was no way to say so much is going to go to District 5, so much is going to District 1, because every district has its own transportation product. So I left the meeting.
Well, the school is set up as I understand it, it's capital expenditures primarily, right? They're restricted, very severely restricted as to what they can do operationally.
Yeah, why does he not have those restrictions in there?
So like we just can't, so we could say on it, like it's going to go towards transportation.
Right.
But he can't put on like what specific projects But, you know,
Well, he couldn't even dedicate it to roads. It might go to the Sunrail. It might go to links. It might go to, so there was no.
A lot of this goes back to why the Hillsborough one failed, was because the county commission, well, the language delegated too much and was too specific, so it was not held up in court. So it has to be, ultimately the BCC decides on how the money is spent, and it can't be so narrowly descriptive as to what it goes to in order to pass legal requirements.
yeah, and I think Sipling also brought up during the meeting that she said, we could decide something right now, how we're gonna spend this money, but then the future board might come in and change all of that. Which, the thing is too, that I believe we can't put it on the, and this is just my idea throwing out there, we can't put it on the ballot for people to vote on, but perhaps, and this is really bad to do though, I'll say it at the beginning, this board could put something together, a plan of projects with the stipulation that it can't be changed, or if they're, or say the only way it can be changed is this way, like a super majority, or, unanimous -1, or, to make it really hard to change, with the next board. But I'll just say, like, as a sitting board member, if someone previously had done, well, they actually did the growth. But like, it's really frustrating, that you can't change something that was done in the past.
There's no end date on it? They have proposed no end date.
I thought there was a 30.
It's 20 year, I think it was 20 years.
20 year, yeah, it's 20
Yeah,
or
they'll
30
collect
years.
it for 20, which I think is too long. But then they're like, but this is where the money that we need 20 years in order to raise the money to fit these needs. But again, I think 20 years is way too long. I would prefer 10 years and, to see, did we do what we promised to do, and then give the people, hey, did you like what we do? Maybe another 10 years. But to be stuck to 20 years and they're not doing what you expected them to do, and you stuck paying this tax, I just don't think it's a good idea.
That may be bonding though, because I think the minimum, well, at one point, the minimum for municipal bond was 20 years. And so if they're going to use that tax to pay off the bonds, then that has to be tied to 20 years. Otherwise, they'll never get approval of the bonding for the bond companies. Probably will drop dead like a stone.
Commissioner, you have Eugene's hand up and it's 9 o'clock.
Okay. Yep.
So Eugene, did you have something quickly?
All right. Question about the tax. Is it going to be a percentage going to different things? Like 20% to mass transit, 50% to roads, is that the way that's going to happen?
Yeah, his question is the tax set up to allocate percentages to different types of projects, and that is not the language, correct?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
Does he have the board support?
I couldn't tell you. The way Sipling spoke, it doesn't seem like he has her support. I mean, that's just what I got out of her statements.
Are you getting any kind of preliminary feedback on the surveys that are being sent out? Reference your district, or are the other commissioners, how the surveys are coming out in their individual districts?
I got a document this big. It was printed out, so I haven't been able to get through the whole thing yet. And
Yeah.
maybe that might be in there.
Right, yeah.
But they're still gathering survey results. So
Yeah.
I don't know if they provided that in there. I'm guessing they didn't.
I
because they're
think
still collecting.
Kit said that at the meeting on, what was it, Tuesday, that she was still encouraging, at least she made it to the public, that there was still surveys. We want more and more and more. And so I didn't know if it was PR on her part, if it was serious. So.
I think the survey is still open.
Yeah.
I mean,
As far as how many they received though, do you remember what she said? Because one news report said 4,000.
Good night, Louis, thank you.
Another one said 43,000. So
He had less than a 3% response rate, which is, if that were to be like a published research study would be rejected immediately because it's not a substantial sample size. It would just be having been rejected many times from journals that I'm writing for. So yeah, that was way too low to draw any real.
Yeah,
Itching to say something. Go ahead, Eugene.
Well, my concern is with the school board, they allocated for projects. So and it was a very, I forget, every 10 years they came back and asked or whatever it was. And I agree with the commissioner, it should be much shorter. And I think we should issue bonds based on the projects. I mean, there should be a list of projects that we can count on and then measure if it actually happened. If he's just asking us for a pot of money, there's no way I would vote for it because I don't trust anyone in government.
What the half-cent sales tax? That's. I got stuck in the middle.
That's a good point, and the audit as well.
Alright.
So, I mean, because this could be just for high-speed rail, or who knows what, right? Or fix the tourist roads.
Initially, I think they listed, excuse me, initially, I think they listed, the first time out, they listed the priorities in the schools that were literally, in some cases, falling down, so that they were going to have to be physically closed because they weren't, and they said that was the priority. And then, of course, was that an attempt to get the legislation, or to get the sales tax approved, or was it really there? But it seems to be it was really there because the audit committee then had that priority was set that those schools that were on that list were the first ones. Then the second time around, now they've expanded it and basically it becomes their capital budget because the state legislature is just.
Right, and I'm confusing the half penny sales tax with the 1 mil property tax, and I can't remember which is my head right now. So I was gonna say something, but I don't remember.
But I mean, that came back for vote again. The people voted to continue paying it.
Yeah.
So, because it was a good. use-
Substantial
It
approval
was
too, I
good,
think.
you know, for the communities and it was. being
The
used
school
properly.
board built
Right.
trust up with that first option, and then it was much easier to come back after we trusted them because they actually did what they said they were going to do on the first time. The county doesn't have that history yet, and they're telling us to trust you for 20 years. I'll be 80 years old.
Yeah, and I will say that I was told that, that this started because Sunrail was going to be turned over to the counties, the local governments for funding, and we didn't have the money to pay that. So I suspect that definitely this money will go to funding the
Yeah.
Sunrail.
And a dedicated funding social links is another primary.
Yeah, and Link is definitely is funding.
But
Because
is
they
it
never-
actually
They never
spelled out
proposed
that
what percentage was the capital expenditures and what percentage was operational. And some of those expenditures on the capital, especially for Sunrail, it's very, very intensive capital. And Link sort of falls in that category too, because the equipment purchases and such, and others are just operational as far as improving the highways and I mean, some of those things, so those are part of an operational budget, so makes a big difference how it's allocated.
So we do have to adjourn. Thank you all for staying for 3 hours and we didn't even get our work group session. I think perhaps the work group breakout session should happen on your own time in between these meetings because we've happened to go over the council meeting into the breakout sessions quite often.
Everybody online, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate your participation too.